road to success is make a decision, stand on your decision, and then let that decision be your exaltation. Let the decision take you to the next place. And if you can, give yourself a runway. You know, logic and reason and deduction are part of your blueprint. You get that with the body. Use it. You know, don't jump off the building and then remember I don't have wings.
Yo, it's like I gotta grab something on my way down. Where am I gonna fall? Where's a safe landing?
Becomes a choice to not heal the wound that's open. Okay. So if you feel the need to always be right in their case, so you can understand, but even for you, they feel the need to always be right. And let's say, I don't know, they were never heard, they were never done all of those things. Even though they keep trying to be heard, that's still rooted in insecurity, needing to be right. Okay. Cognitive closure. There's a list of things, right? So if you keep hitting a brick wall every morning, you just walk straight into the wall. Now you get mad at the brick wall. You're like, this wall is stupid. You're choosing to keep walking into that wall. Don't get mad at the wall for being a wall. So this goes the same with the people that is around you. When a wound of you is exposed, it is your job to heal it. Not necessarily on your own, but it's not their job to make up for it. Okay? And that's important for you to know because it's not your job to make up for their trauma. No. Okay, so it becomes a choice when people want to stay in that, and that is victim mentality. And yes, it is a choice. I have been there. I have lived it through my mom dying, through living in a van, through eating sea salt. I have been there. It is a choice to stay in that mindset, not the position, the mindset. So if you get mad at the brick wall, check yourself and say, why do I keep wanting that wall to change?
Welcome to Call for the Truth. I'm LaOta of the Sun, and this is Tarvars of the Sun, and we're going to be talking about the divine masculine and the divine feminine in our relationships and what happens there. But before we begin, Tarvars, will you call for the truth?
Most certainly. We encourage you all to join us in the call for the truth. Should we call forth the frequency of truth to come forward? Should we call to see the truth in all that we see? Should we call to hear the truth in all that we hear? Should we call to speak the truth in all that we say, calling forth the courage to speak the truth? Shall we call forth nothing less than the truth to come forward into our experience? And we are going to be speaking on the truth of masculine and feminine today. Primarily this idea of how both masculine and feminine are operating in detriment.
Absolutely.
We don't know what divine masculine, divine feminine is, or at least the collective consciousness of humanity. We don't really have any reference points for that. It's been obfuscated somewhere early on in our story.
Yes.
And just exploring really what's happening in terms of the dynamics of how we've been cultivated to work against each other.
Yes.
And there's this dynamic of slave and enslaver, victim, victimizer, someone being the abuser and the abused. This dichotomy going on, and like, where did this come from? How did we get here? What do we do to rectify this?
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So the idea that we are, in fact, aspects of divinity, the divine masculine and the divine feminine are aspects of creation. We are polarities of creation. One end of the spectrum being the divine feminine, one end of the spectrum being the divine masculine, and the two together being the parents of humanity. This is not the way we have been taught through our lore or our sacred texts or our world religions, but this is clearly...
We're not test tube babies out here.
This is clearly the way that nature, which is our indicator of creation's plan, this is the way that we can see that the two aspects of creation come together as the parents, and they don't always operate in the same way. Relationships between the masculine and the feminine in nature are not always the same. They're not always monogamous. They're not always the parent having the same duties. So there's a variety of different things that happen. So that lets us see there's a variety of different ways that we can be correct, not one way. There are many ways in which we can be correct, but in this experience of the masculine being the dominant gender of authority in our world, and then us being taught to bow to the authority. So we never are taught that we should go against this authority figure, because it is all pervasive in everything that we do. It's in our governments, it's in our medical, it's in our schools, it's in our churches, it's in our relationships, it's in the parent and child dynamic, it's in the masculine and feminine dynamic. So it comes from this level of cultivation of the history that we can see and that we can know, because of course we don't know all of our history or her story either. So from what we can see that this has been passed down through generations and generations and generations, and that it doesn't serve the masculine or the feminine, that we are all struggling with our relationships. The masculine is struggling and the feminine is struggling, and we're switching roles, we're reversing opportunities to see if we can position ourselves for more satisfaction in any of the many dynamics. And then we have many roles we play. We may be an employee, or we may be a manager, or we may be a parent, or we may be the child. And all of these different roles, we're looking to see where we can gain the most satisfaction and advantage. And we're coming up short because of the way our world currently is manifesting in front of us. And what we have noticed at Of the Sun, where we are calling for the power of the divine feminine to come back into the world, we now see the necessity to call forth the power of the divine masculine to come back into our world with integrity, discipline, and action to support the honor, respect, and gratitude. And we see that this would give us a better opportunity for greater depth of satisfaction in all of our relationships. Of course, we're talking to many people in our consultations in the Of the Sun business. We're talking to many people in varying levels of relationships that are unsatisfactory, that they're looking for some level of being able to feel more whole in it. And so we do notice a lot of similarities with this transactional idea of whether it's a parent asking a child to behave a certain way so that they may receive a certain benefit, or it's a person who is political, who is upset by the political outcome, refusing to be intimate with someone who had something to do with it or didn't. So we see varying levels of whether people are balanced or not. So I don't know if I got to everything.
Yeah, and you're kind of shifting us into another aspect of this idea of this threat and withholding within the dynamic of the relationship. You mentioned, we're often looking for some type of satisfaction within these dynamics of masculine and feminine. And that is weaponized in many cases. Again, there's this transactional emotional abuse, right? Where I know you want this, but I need you to do this. And if you don't, I'm going to take and withhold this from you, which oftentimes we see, this is primarily through the lens of the woman being the victim, and money, status, security. I mean, there's several clients, and even outside of our clients, we see it in the world where if you don't operate how I want you to, I'll remove your livelihood. And so, of course, usually the woman acquiesces. And again, there's that transaction. I'll take the abuse. And, you were mentioning in a previous conversation that everyone has their threshold for the most part. Some people, I'm like, when are you going to get to your threshold? Where's your, God damn, you're taking a lot of abuse. Ooh, serious. So would you speak a little bit about this?
It's kind of interesting to listen to the way that you're saying this, because I have found that when people don't get what they need, they leave. At whatever point that is in their development, that I don't think that people will stay with their religion, with their families, with their lovers, with their school, with their political parties if they don't get what they think they need.
And I'd like to jump in. See, I see that people are getting what they need, but there is a cost. They're being accosted some level of abuse or being
Well,
guilted into doing certain things to get, like case in point. There are we have seen examples of people who want the money from their partner, who they maybe have been with for quite some time or a relatively short amount of time, and but in order for them to have that, they need to behave how the partner wants them to, which is maybe out of character for them, but they're like, you know what, this is what I want, this is what's going to give me satisfaction, so I'm willing to take this abuse.
yes.
And in many cases, degrade my values or relinquish any values that I have
Yes.
at the cost of what I think I want. So that's what I meant. Like, I think people are staying because they're getting what they want, but I feel like there's a cost that most people are paying.
The getting what you want may be better defined. What it's reminding me of is a completely opposite situation. It's I see this in all relationships, whether we have a relationship with a corporation that says, I'm going to have big screen TVs and all the electronics you want, but I'm only going to have them at midnight, and you have to stand outside in the cold, and you'll have to wait 3 days in tents, and then I'll give it to you if you come when I say you should. I feel like it's
the same principle.
It is. That's my point. It is. We are only reliving or replicating what the corporations and the companies who control what we want. So if iPhone drops a new iPhone, and they won't sell it when they drop it, but they have a date, and you have to stand outside and wait for it, and they don't have enough people online, so there's a lot of suffering because you have to be in the cold and you can't get it right away and it's not available, but they've had a campaign that got everybody into a frenzy. It's not any different than I want that guy that looks like he's got everything and who's going to, he's got the money, he's got the position, he's got the looks, he's got all the things I think I want, and I'm wanting him to now give me his things. So there is that position of, the idea of why should he give you his things? It's not that I don't think that women are mistreated. I think that women mistreat themselves. So when I see something on sale and it says you have to buy it in the next 3 hours, it's a special sale, it's a pop-up sale, you'll only get the discount, we know you want this thing, you can only have it then, I think to myself, I need to make more money so that I don't have to do this when you say I have to do it. But that's the way I think.
See, where you're taking it is a very deep place that is beyond the shallow understandings that people have regarding this dynamic, where you said you see that women are kind of choosing the abuse, and one could say the same thing for men, and even as it relates to a corporation, right? We're choosing to stand outside in the cold for the thing. You mentioned something. There is a musician. We're not going to say his name, but he sounds like a herb, cayenne. Cayenne pepper, cayenne east, west, or something. And this guy made a comment saying slavery is a choice. Would you speak on this idea of how specifically being a victim or subjected to abuse is a choice within any relationship?
So let's go back to the example of the store has the thing you want, and it's a once a year special, and it's 50% less than it would ever be, and you don't think that you are capable of having it any other way, or you have the money but you want to do some other things, so you're making a choice. I'm going to camp outside for 3 days because my time and my comfort is not valuable to me. more than the thing I want, the electronic item. So it's not any different than you are, whether you take a job and they say, well, you're going to have to work, you're going to have to sleep here at night, you're going to have to work 12 hours a day, and you're going to have to work 6 days a week. We call that management. And like, you want to be called the manager, then this is how this works. I'm saying that what goes on between the masculine and the feminine has been taught to us, this is your original question, through the systems that really have cultivated us, what we have seen all of our lives, what our parents have seen.
Yeah, we're just replicating it from the top
We're
down.
just replicating it. So I'm really still on that idea. And of course, it permeates all the way down to the family structure, to the way women react with women and behave with women, to the way men react with men, to the way that the masculine and the feminine act in detriment to each other. Yeah. It is the same dynamic. To be in a divine feminine and divine masculine relationship, we are calling here at Of the Sun for honor, respect, and gratitude, because that is the basis. We must start with knowing that you deserve honor, and that if you have honor for self, you have it available to give.
This is so interesting because looking at it through the principle is so meta and up here, but like you can take it all throughout. And I was just processing how going from family dynamic to relationships, and then it leads all the way up to this idea of corporations. And my mind went to, okay, corporations, capitalism, the way how things are structured is within more of a masculine dominant way of operating within reality, but it's in detriment. But at the same time, it's not just the masculine and blame, it's both masculine and feminine that are operating in detriment, even though the masculine may look like it has the upper hand, which I don't think that's the case. I think it's more of an illusion of an upper hand, because both are losing. No one's really winning. Because if you think about like capitalism, like how long can that it's unsustainable, because at some point it'll meet its end, so it's in the long term, it's a losing game for all parties. And again, even within, so taking it back down to relationships, victimizer, in the long term, somebody's going to meet their threshold. Somebody may be over it. Somebody may be super dissatisfied. Even if they stick within the relationship, I've seen people who have been together for a long time and they're just waiting for the person to die. I'm just over it.
Yes, I think you have a story of how you were working. I don't remember, you were doing some kind of work, and I think you were selling something, and you took off your headset and you walked out, and you've told that story on
Yeah, I'll share it in brief.
Yes, if you tell that, I think that tells us everything. It's the masculine and the feminine. It is those in authority. It is not the person in front of you. It is what has been taught to humanity, and we get to play the role of which one you choose to be. What I posit is that it doesn't matter what they say, it matters what you choose, that at some point there's always a choice.
I agree.
And the story you tell, and you were like shaky in your choice, like you were invigorated, and then the reality set in that you had not planned it.
Yeah.
But then you were still victorious.
I sure was.
But you had a moment, which I think is important for the divine masculine and divine feminine. No, you might have that moment and then you have to pull yourself back together, know that you are enough, and things will be okay.
Yeah.
Your consciousness will come forward.
Well, certainly.
Yeah.
So this does echo the example that you gave with the workforce and a manager position. Even though this was not a manager position, there are certain things that are required between you and your employer. And
transactional.
Yes, transactional. I will subject myself to this level of abuse or manipulation, coercion, because I'm getting paid.
Yes.
So whatever the amount is, there's a level of acceptance and there's a threshold. And I was going through DNA activation at the time. My world was being rocked. I was questioning everything, all the different types of relationships, and seeing what serves me, what does not. And working in sales, you're taught to manipulate, which again, is a choice, right? It's a choice to put the headset on, manipulate. lie about these sales that we're going to have next week and the week thereafter, but you've called the power hour, and if you don't get it within this call, you will miss out, and to make them feel guilty and shamed for not taking the opportunity. It's horrible, and I was going against, again, my morals and my values that I was looking to cultivate. And one day it just hit where I said, I cannot do this. It was so funny too when I look back at it. The guy, I was actually, it was multifaceted, but I was selling, I won't say the company's name, but satellite cable, fill in the blank. And the guy questioned me. He goes, why should I buy this right now? I said, you know what, sir? Why should you buy this right now? You know what? Take a moment, figure it out, get back to us. I ended the call. You don't end the call. They end it. They have to hang up on you, and you got to rebuttal at least 3 times. I hung up. And then the next call that came in, thank you for calling so-and-so. The guy begins talking. I hang up in the middle, take the headset off, and just walk out. No, hey, supervisor, look, I'm done. No, silently just walk out.
Oh my goodness. That explains those times when I called companies and it felt like somebody...
So we be hanging up.
Now
there's a risk.
Now I understand what happened. They walked out.
There's a risk
I'm trying
involved.
to call to get my cable hooked up, and the person just quit.
It's like
they didn't. What do they call it when they quit and they don't tell you?
Oh, the soft quitting.
No,
quiet quitting. Yeah, hard quit. Send my check in the mail, direct deposit me. I don't care.
So, but that's really my point about people don't stay where they don't get what they need.
Yeah, and what I needed was congruency with what I was doing for a living, because it was so conflicting with what I was looking to cultivate.
Well, but it actually further brings home the point that there's always a choice.
Yeah.
So, it's good if you have a little runway and you've considered your options and your choices, but there's always this choice when we live in such a bubble of people only being able to see the things they want. So they can only see, well, I can't do that because I won't have it. I'd have to go back and live with my mother. That's a choice. I'd have to call my friends. I'd have to ask somebody else. I'd have to take my time and slowly get myself out of this so I can situate myself. So there's always this option. I often talk about what happened with the American Indians when this country was settled and they tried to make American Indians slaves. And the American Indians would not be made slaves. They chose not to be slaves. I'm African and my relatives were slaves. And I can see that impulse inside myself to be in that energy pattern, but I also can see through the history of the indigenous of this part of the planet, the North America, that they refused. And they refused so much so that some of the history speaks of how tens of thousands of them walked into the ocean, into another dimension, because they weren't afraid of death, because they were in touch with creation. But they wasn't about to be slaves.
So to that point, we were talking about earlier, not on the podcast, but outside of it, this fear of death being weaponized against us, where if we don't do the thing, there's a fear that we will lose. Like a case in point would be more like the example that I gave earlier, but I want to elaborate a little more on the example. Client is in a relationship with someone. That someone has resources, properties, monies that the client is not entitled to. The woman is not entitled to this, but he's dangling it, and but at the same time being abused, right? And so there's this choice, but also within that, there's a weaponization of, I will remove your security, I will remove your safety and resources if you don't behave, or I don't know, whatever the request is. So I see the threat of death, and you're speaking to the importance of moving beyond the fear. So how does someone
Confront it.
navigate that?
I
Like,
have lived through that experience, whether it was from parents being security and that being removed, or relationships that felt secure and they being removed. It is a wonderful blessing from the universe and creator to confront us with our ability to have what we want. There is this wonderful experience of learning that if I want to live at that level, I will have to think my way through that. I will have to have the necessary emotional pitch that puts me in the space where I am not a victim of someone else's deciding what I should have, that I become the arbitrator of what I will have and what I will not have through my own efforts. If I don't have enough will and energy to feel like doing whatever it takes to get to be $1 million, then I don't. But if I have enough to get to whatever it is I want, so this is a real golden nugget of, this is a gift that feels like a struggle, but it's truly a gift. You get deprived and then you decide, no, I will not be deprived. Shall not be denied. I will not be deprived. I don't require your favor. I can do this on my own.
So I want to speak to something, because this is triggering the idea of how we are whole, or at least that's the original design. But we have somehow been tricked, even in spirituality. Let me get the other half of my twin flame to, because it's like, you already whole. Get it together, right? But there's this, I need the other, even though there's within male and female relationships and that polarity, they are one and the same. But we have that within us, the circuitry of masculine and feminine, heaven and earth, to pull in our realities. Would you speak to that idea about wholeness?
It's making me smile, because in spirituality, the whole idea of you have to find your other half and all of that, is that in point of fact, all things are frequency, and whoever you're with is a frequency match. So if it is that you are a person, enjoying the experience of someone else's resources, and you are making yourself available to be part of that experience, this is a frequency match. They have something, you want it. That's a match. So when you want what someone has, then you don't have someone trying to make you do something to get the thing you don't want. That's a frequency match as well. So I'm smiling because I didn't understand that for many decades, but I do now. I understand that I will draw to me the experience that matches my frequency to be receptive to it. In the same way that male and female are physically designed to fit together a certain way, and then we replicate it in our plugs and in all of the electronics and all the things that we do with electricity. It is the same principle or law that we will attract that which we are the match for. So the abuser attracts the one who wants to be abused, or the one who hasn't yet learned not to be abused.
Yeah, so it sounds like one of the solutions to moving out of that type of experience is to not even play that game, so to say.
And what I found is that in my own experience, is that my desire to not take responsibility for my own exaltation was very painful. And I suffered quite a bit.
I think all of humanity can say the same thing.
I would say all of humanity does too.
I mean, we're experiencing it with politicians. We just recently experienced it. People, you have this word that you've been using, hopium.
Yes.
Hopium. And I actually want to go a little further into that with the previous example, how people are living off of hopium, that someone will change, things will be different. But even in the recent election, you had people who were we won't get into the names and whatnot, but now it's like, what? I thought you were going to do, I thought you were the one, the savior. And now he's retracting everything. And the hot air balloon of hopium is leaking out air and or helium. So where does this hopium come from?
The whole experience of,
Specifically, that our abuser will change.
well, the whole idea that most of us can see beyond what is material, and we can see what a person thinks, but we decide to engage at every level, our body fluids, our psychic ability, our cohabitate. We engage at every level with that which is not what it is we intend, but at a deeper level, it is the match for who it is we are. So,
you know how they say the road to hell was paved with good intentions?
yes.
It's like, it wasn't my intention. I mean, apparently, because you're with the person. And
yeah. So then you choose the person who represents the idea that you think you want, that is in fact the frequency match that makes you suffer. And then you decide that you want them to change, and you tell your mother, I'm just waiting on him to change. And you tell all your girlfriends, I'm just forever hopeful that he will change. And you spend decades and years, and I'm hoping he'll change. But the reality is you're not prepared to move out and do the thing or get the thing that you think you want. And so that keeps you imprisoned to your own worldview of that the rest of the world must change for you to continue to have the experience that is unsatisfactory, but that you want this unsatisfactory experience to change into one that is satisfactory to you through your illusion and hope.
Keep hopium alive.
Yes.
Or not.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm just praying that person will change, when in fact, it is only you who has control over you, who is responsible for you. It is only you who can change. And then that person may, in fact, be different after you change yourself. Because you may see them through different eyes. Mm-hmm. Or they may react to the new frequency and be a different response to your new frequency. But the responsibility of taking full concern with self to look at the full palette of what is your frequency. So what am I looking for? What am I asking for? Why is it that I want this person to change into, I want them to talk nicer to me? Well, how many decades have you been wanting that? How long has that been going on? How many conversations have you had? Have you had 2 conversations? 22 conversations? How long is that? When are you going to decide, I think that's enough of that? I no longer am interested in how you talk to me, because I'm no longer talking to you. I'm talking to somebody else who knows, who is a better frequency match for me at this point. Mm-hmm. So this is really about personal responsibility. And it's unfortunate that in every situation we can't see it, and everyone feels that they're the victims of history, they're the victims of, the masculine, or they're the victims of the feminine, or they're the victims of their parents or their ancestry. The reality is, it's our world. It's up to us to change it. It starts one person at a time. If you don't like the situation you're in, you are encouraged to make a plan so that you don't, so that you have a nice smooth landing.
Yeah.
You managed to get out of yours, but you didn't really think about what it meant. You were just really reacting to, in your scenario with your story, you were really reacting to the distaste. Like, I think I'm just going to take this off. You didn't blow up the office. You just took it off and walked out and like, they'll pay me or they won't. And I don't really care. And the universe supported you in that
Sure
clarity.
did.
So the solution is make a decision in your own best interest, in your own behalf, that involves you. So you didn't try to change the owner of the company, did you? Said, why are you making people say this?
You're right.
Did you go to the manager and say,
I
want to fight with you because you wrote this script for me to say? Which people do things like that. They want to keep the job, and then they want to make the other person do it. They want the other person to change. But that's not the road to success. The road to success is make a decision, stand on your decision, and then let that decision be your exaltation. Let the decision take you to the next place. And if you can, give yourself a runway. You know, logic and reason and deduction are part of your blueprint. You get that with the body. Use it. You know, don't jump off the building and then remember I don't have wings.
Yo, it's like I gotta grab something on my way down. Where am I gonna fall? Where's a safe landing?
Did you have anything else on that? Or?
No, I feel like this is a solid space to leave off of, because it leaves us in a space where it reinforces really a higher dimensional, higher level of conscious way of being,
Yes.
where we are not subjecting ourselves to being a victim. And again, on every level of our relationships, love, friends, family, our relationships with corporations, political bodies, governing bodies, all of it, it's all the same thing, the same principles that are playing out through and through, but we always have the power to change, starting with self. You know, it's and then I think also the component of frequency match, recognizing that, yo, what's in front of you is you. Until you change you, you know, that won't change. And it often sounds very fantastical to people, but I often say, put to the test these theories or these intellectualizations that we have of spirituality, so we can prove it to ourselves. Ooh, that worked. I changed me, and you're acting a little different now.
Yes.
Life is responding differently.
Absolutely, because we are the center of our own universes. You know, no, the whole world is not thinking about you. People think about you much less than you imagine they do. But you may think about yourself and change your own experience.
Yes.
So it's not quite the way we think it is, but I think this is a good place to begin, and we may have more conversations like this. Would you be willing to call for the truth, use the call for the truth cards to let us know what the universe has to share with us concerning our talk today and our dialogue? What is your question today?
Asking to see the truth regarding the masculine and feminine in detriment and transactional emotional abuse.
I'd like to, while you shuffle the cards, bring to everyone's attention, we encourage you to know that the divine feminine is supported to bring balance through honor, respect, and gratitude. And the divine masculine can bring back into our experience integrity, discipline, and action to bring balance to humanity. We are in support of both of the two divine polarities that empower parenting, so that we are the parents of humanity and that we can birth balance into our world.
Yes. So our card pull for the day is sacred space. Everywhere you step is sacred space, but you need to own it, know it, and be it. And this literally speaks to everything we were saying earlier, the knowingness of who we are, our divinity, the responsibility that's required, and how things will shift when we step into it, you know, and honoring that sacredness.
I love these cards. That is so perfect. You know, shall we all live in sacred space? Every place we step, place our foot, be the sacred space for us. We thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again. We would like to give you the greetings of In Lakesh and Veritas with honor, respect, and gratitude. And for the divine masculine, we call back the energy of the divine masculine to bring balance into our world with integrity, discipline, and action. Thank you. In Lakesh and Veritas.